There are characters who frighten because they are powerful. There are characters who unsettle because they are unpredictable. And then there is Thresh, a character who does neither of those things and is somehow the most disturbing of all. He does not rage. He does not lose control. He does not act out of hunger or grief or madness. He acts out of pure, patient, deliberate interest. And that is exactly what makes him so hard to look away from and so impossible to forget. To understand Thresh, you cannot start with what he does. You have to start with what he was. Before the lantern, before the chains, before the Shadow Isles swallowed everything in mist and ruin, Thresh was a warden. A keeper of prisoners on the Isles when they were still a place of the living, a place of stone corridors, silence, and the long, slow wait of confinement. His role was not war. His role was custody. He was the man who held the keys, who decided when the door opened and when it stayed shut, who stood between a prisoner and the outside world and made that distance feel infinite. It was a role built entirely on control, and Thresh was exceptionally good at it. Not because he was the strongest, not because he was the most feared in the conventional sense, but because he understood something most people never admit to themselves. That power over another person is most complete, not when you destroy them, but when you make them live inside their own destruction. A dead prisoner is no longer yours. A broken one still is. This is the foundation of everything Thresh becomes. It is not a transformation, it is a reveal. Because the man who became the Chain Warden did not change when catastrophe came, he became more fully himself. When the Ruination swept across the Isles and the Blessed Isles became the Shadow Isles, when death lost its meaning and souls were unmoored from rest, Thresh did not mourn what was lost. He did not rage against what happened. He looked at the new world around him and recognized it as opportunity. Where others saw horror, he saw a laboratory. Where others experienced loss, he experienced expansion. The rules that had once constrained him, mortality, consequence, judgment, simply dissolved, and what remained was the purest possible version of what he had always been. And what he had always been was a collector. That word matters more than it might seem at first. Thresh does not simply hunt souls because he is a creature of the Isles, or because he needs them to survive, or because some dark force compels him. He collects them because he wants to. Because there is, for him, a genuine and consuming pleasure in the act of acquisition, not of the soul itself, but of the moment before it is taken, the moment when a person understands what is happening. When the lantern swings and the chain pulls tight and the realization arrives that there is no escape, that no one is coming, that the thing holding the other end of the chain has already decided how this ends. That moment of recognition, of absolute helplessness, is what Thresh savors. The soul trapped in his lantern is not a trophy in the way a soldier might display a conquered banner. It is more intimate than that. It is a relationship, sustained and prolonged precisely because its ending is always in his hands and never in theirs. This is the element of Thresh's character that separates him from almost every other villain in the League of Legends universe. Most antagonists, when examined closely, reveal some wound at their core, some loss, some betrayal, some moment where the world failed them first. That wound does not excuse what they become, but it explains the shape of their darkness. Thresh has no such wound. His lore offers no moment of origin trauma, no turning point where cruelty was learned as a response to suffering. He was not made cruel, he was always this. The Ruination did not corrupt him because there was nothing in him to corrupt it, simply removed the barriers that had kept his nature from its fullest expression. He is not a good man who became a monster. He is a precise, intelligent, deeply patient man whose particular nature was, in the context of normal life, kept in careful check, and who finally found a world where those checks no longer exist. That distinction is philosophically significant, and it is where Thresh becomes something more than a villain with a dark aesthetic. He forces a question that most stories prefer to sidestep. What do we do with evil that is not reactive? What do we do with cruelty that is not a symptom of damage, not a cry for help in disguise, not a wound wearing a mask? Because the instinct in storytelling and in human psychology more broadly is to search for the reason. to find the moment that explains everything, to believe that cruelty is always, at its root, pain expressing itself in the wrong direction. Thresh denies that comfort. He looks back at that instinct with his lantern swaying and his patience entirely intact, and he offers nothing, no explanation, no origin wound, no hidden grief beneath the malice, just interest, just the quiet, sustained, almost academic pleasure of watching someone realize that hope was always an illusion. What makes this even heavier is how intelligent he is. Thresh is not a brute. He is not someone who acts on impulse. He is a strategist of suffering in the most literal sense, someone who thinks carefully about how to maximize the experience he is after. He does not simply take souls. He plays. He creates false exits. He lets people believe, briefly, that escape is possible, because the collapse of that belief is more exquisite than simple capture. He is the kind of entity who understands that despair is not a single moment but a process, and that the process is richer and more satisfying when it is drawn out. There is something almost curatorial about the way he operates, a connoisseur's attention to detail, a craftsman's investment in method. This is not the darkness of a creature that cannot help itself. This is the darkness of a mind that has found its perfect occupation. And then there is the lantern. In gameplay terms, the lantern is one of the most iconic objects in League of Legends. A tool of support, of rescue, of reaching across the map to pull an ally to safety. The irony is so precise it almost feels like the design was built around a thesis statement. Because Thresh's lantern in the lore is the opposite of salvation. It is a prison shaped like a light. It is the thing that makes the trapped believe they are looking at a door when they are looking at a cage. The souls inside it are not at rest. They are not simply dead. They are held in a state of prolonged awareness, unable to move on, unable to fade, unable to forget, kept company by the same mind that put them there, which continues to study them, engage with them, and find new methods of extending what they feel. The lantern is Thresh's masterwork. It is the physical embodiment of his philosophy, that the most complete form of control is not destruction but suspension, not ending but prolonging, not taking away existence, but making existence something a person would choose to give up if only they could. This is where Thresh's story becomes genuinely dark in a way that outlasts any individual scene or moment, because it raises a question about consciousness and suffering that has no comfortable answer. What does it mean to trap a soul? What does it mean to be aware and unable to act, unable to rest, unable to be released? The souls in Thresh's lantern are not metaphors. In the lore of the Shadow Isles, they are real awareness in a state of real, continuous experience, with no avenue toward peace and no agency over that experience. And the mind that holds them does not do so out of necessity. He does so because he finds it interesting. Because watching what prolonged containment does to a consciousness is, for him, the most engaging pursuit available. He is the warden who never stopped being a warden. He just no longer needs walls. What is also worth noting, and what often gets lost when Thresh is discussed purely as a horror figure, is that his relationship to the Isles themselves is not one of belonging or service. He is not loyal to the Ruined King. He is not a soldier of entropy. He is, in a very real sense, a free agent who simply finds the Shadow Isles to be the environment most conducive to what he wants to do. He does not serve. He indulges. And that independence makes him stranger and more unsettling than if he were simply the instrument of some larger, catastrophic will. Because an instrument can, theoretically, be separated from the hand that wields it. Thresh is already separated from everything. He answers to nothing except his own sustained fascination with what sentient beings look like when all their defenses finally give out. There is a moment that captures this better than any long description could. In his interactions, in the taunts and lines written for him, Thresh does not roar or threaten. He asks questions. He observes. He makes comments that suggest he has been paying close, careful attention for a very long time. He sounds, more than anything else, like someone who is genuinely curious, interested in what you are going to do next, interested in how long it will take, interested in whether you will be surprising or predictable. That register, the register of curious observation rather than anger or hunger, is the most frightening thing about him, because it confirms that you are not an enemy to him, not even a target in the meaningful sense. You are a subject. You are something he is watching, cataloging, and looking forward to adding to a collection that he tends with the same quiet dedication that some people give to gardens. That is the heart of what makes Thresh one of the most powerful character concepts in the entire universe of Runeterra. Not his magic, not his chains, not the visual iconography of the lantern swinging in the dark. It is that he represents a form of evil that does not need justification, does not seek understanding, and does not ask to be forgiven because it has never, for a single moment, believed it needed to be. He is comfortable. He is patient. He is, in the deepest and most unsettling sense of the word, content. And in a world full of characters defined by what they want to become, or what they are trying to escape, or what they lost and are trying to reclaim, Thresh is defined by the fact that he already is exactly what he always wanted to be. He found his purpose long before the Ruination, and the Ruination simply gave it room to breathe. That is why he is worth writing about at length. Not because his story is the most complex in terms of narrative structure, but because it is one of the most honest in terms of what it is willing to say about the nature of cruelty. He does not let us off easy. He does not offer us the comfort of an explanation. He simply exists, precise and patient, lantern in hand, and waits for the moment when the person on the other end of the chain finally understands that the light they were reaching toward was never meant to guide them home. He is not a monster that was made. He is simply a mind that was, for a long time, inconvenienced by a world with rules, and then the rules went away, and what remained was entirely, perfectly him.